I spoke to Aviva Siegel tonight, a former hostage whose husband is still being held in Gaza. She told me that she believes that you are sentencing her husband, Keith, to die by prioritizing the Philadelphia corridor over a deal. And she has this question for you. Is Keith going to come home alive or dead?
I'll do everything to make sure that Keith and all the other hostages come back. I'm telling you that if we relieve the pressure, if we get out of the Philadelphia corridor, we're not going to get the hostages back. Certainly we're going to condemn a lot of them to stay there. We could get a few out. They'll give us that. But they'll leave a lot with them. We won't have the pressure point. And something else will happen. We will not be able to come back. So we won't release all the hostages. And we won't achieve the defenses that we must have to prevent more October 7th again and again and again. That is my responsibility. I can understand the torment of families. They don't, none of them believe that we'll get the hostages in the first batch either. None of them, few of them, quite a few of them didn't believe it. And they came and they said, you have to get them out, you have to get them out. You're not going to give them out, you have to make this concession or that concession. I didn't make those concessions, and we got them out. So it's very hard, I don't stand in judgment of these tormented souls because they're undergoing an agony that is hard to fathom, and I understand that. But the responsibility of leaders is not merely to share the sentiment, the emotion, but also to exercise judgment, the correct judgment, to make sure that these horrors do not happen again. I believe that our strategy is the best way to achieve both goals, both freeing the hostages and ensuring that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again.
And secondly, sir, more than 40,000 Palestinians have now been killed in Gaza, a majority of whom are civilians. And these numbers are from the Palestinian Ministry of Health, but they are backed up by the United States, by international organizations. Humanitarian conditions in Gaza have degraded so much that diseases like polio and hepatitis A are now spreading. We have seen countless children be orphaned. We have seen countless mothers lose their children. How much is too much, sir? At what point is it time to end this war?
Well, we'll end the war when we achieve our war goals of making sure that Hamas can't repeat such atrocities. But we're fighting this war in a just war with just means. In fact, with means that no other army has ever fought. No other army has taken the precautions that Israel has taken, sometimes at great risk, to make sure that we minimize the number of casualties. You talked about polio. We enabled now massive vaccination of polio. We want 90% of the Gazan people of Gaza vaccinated.
What caused the spread, though?
200,000, I think, were vaccinated today. We put in 1 million tons of food, 1 million tons of aid. 700,000 tons of food. That's unheard of. We've taken, because we think that every civilian death is a tragedy. For Hamas, every civilian death is a strategy. For us, it's a tragedy. So we've taken precautions to avoid civilian deaths that no army on earth, on urban warfare, has taken. We've issued millions of text messages, millions of flyers, hundreds of thousands of phone calls. We actually phone people and say, get out. We lose the element of surprise. So as a result of that, in the most densely packed urban warfare theater in history, where you have 35,000 Hamas terrorists, 50 meters above ground, 50 meters below ground, in the most intricate and complex underground terror tunnel network on Earth, we've been able to achieve the lowest ratio of civilians to combatant deaths in the history of modern urban warfare. It's 1-to-1, even by those numbers of the Palestinian Health Ministry, because we've killed probably around 18,000 terrorists, certainly no less than 17,000. So the ratio is about 1-to-1. But recently, it's gone down precipitously. You know when? We went into Rafah. And you remember what the international community and the international press and many of you reported before that. You said they're going to be stuck there. There are 1.4 million people in Gaza. They moved from the north to the south. You're going to have thousands, 20,000 killed. You're going to have a catastrophe, a humanitarian catastrophe. They had no place to go, no food to eat. Now report honestly, because here's what happened. They all left. They went to the humanitarian zone, which is 2 miles away, less, on the beach. They have tents. We supplied tents for 150,000 people. The aid agencies supplied the rest, and some of them carried their own tents. They have a place. We supplied water lines, sewage lines, food. There's more to be done, medical. So now we know how many people were killed, how many terrorists, because we counted them. And we just passed 2,000. Terrorists, body counts of terrorists. The people left. How many civilians died? I asked the commander of the division that did the Rafah operation and the Philadelphia corridor. He said, Prime Minister, there are hardly any civilian deaths because everybody left. They heeded our warnings. But he said there were probably 24, and most of them occurred, 24, and most of them occurred when one of our bombs hit a Hamas ammunition depot that was planted inside a residential area. 40 people died, about 20 were terrorists, but 20 were civilians. And he said that's most of the deaths. That's the lowest ratio of non-combatants to combatants in the history of urban warfare. That's it. Now report honestly, because you accused us of something that is outrageous. And in fact, the accusations against us are outrageously false. Humanitarian aid? 1 million trucks of aid, 1 million tons of aid? 700,000 tons of food? A deliberate starvation policy? You can say anything. Doesn't make it true. You repeat a lie over and over and over again. It assumes the cachet of self-evident truth, but it's false. Israel is doing, and the Israeli army is doing, something that no other army has done in history and will continue to do that. I'm not going to change my policies. Humanitarian policies, vaccination policies, combat policies to minimize civilian casualties.